Okay, so what happens at the moment when our player gets killed? Well, for now, all that happens is basically we just get reset back to where we started from. So we fall down, we die. It's no big problem. We just kind of get reset back to where we started. So that's fine. That's all. If that's what you want to do, and that's all you want to do, you're perfectly happy with that. But it's kind of interesting to add a little extra bit of a challenge to our game and give ourselves a limited number of lives, which is obviously a very common thing in these kind of platformer games like this. So we're going to add a simple and easy to use live system to our game. So if we're going to have a live system, obviously we're going to need a way to display it on the screen. So let's quickly make something to show it within our UI here. So if we go down to our UI canvas here, we're going to add a new game object. We're going to right click on this. We're going to create an empty game object first that we'll call our lives holder. And now if we right click on this, instead of having to go to game object up here and create a new UI element and then dragging it to be a child, if we right click on this, we can go down to UI here and go to image. And so we're going to use an image here. And previously the way we set this up is by going to our art folder now and dragging it into place. But instead what we're going to do is hit the little circle to the side of source image here. And then we get a list of all the sprites in our whole entire game. So it's handy because we're only working off this one sprite sheet at the moment. But if you had a whole load of different sprite sheets with different stuff, this would kind of be a bit more of an unwieldy way to do it. But because we're only using the one sprite sheet, we know that all our images are going to be in here anyway. So let's find a good symbol to use for our sprite guy. We can use this little kind of face that looks like our character. So let's use this one, Sprites 169. So we'll double click on that and it gets put into place and we see it in the screen view here. So I'm going to, so that's right in the middle at the moment. So what I'm going to do is grab the lives holder box here. We're going to lock that to be down in the corner, the bottom left corner like we've done before. And then I'm going to drag, if we switch to the right tool, we're going to drag this down here so that it appears in the corner, kind of like this. So then we want to grab our image, and that's obviously way too big in our game. That's taking up way too much space. So let's resize this here. Just resize it down to the corner. That's kind of roughly what we want, like that. So if we maximize it, let's just see that it's staying in the corner, and it is. So we go back in here. That's actually still a little bit too big, really, isn't it? Let's drag this down a little bit more. We want to preserve the aspect like we did before, so we make sure it stays the right shape without getting kind of stretched around on us. So that's our image, and let's make just another text box like we've done before too. So we'll create a text here, and we'll drag it over to the side, and I'm going to make this a nice shade of white, and we'll make the font size a little bit bigger. And in our text box, I'm just going to type for now lives x 99 just as a default. And so if we switch back to our game view, we'll see we've got a little lives x99 there. So now we've got our basic little text element set up. So let's add some changes to our level manager to control our actual lives in the game. So we'll go into our level manager again. And if we have a look at this here, so obviously in our level manager here, we're going to need to make some new kind of variables to control to control our lives in the game. So we're going to need a public int that we're going to call current lives. We're going to need obviously a starting amount of lives, so we'll say a public int starting lives like that, and we'll save. And we obviously, if we're going to make changes to the text box that appears on the screen, we're going to need a reference to that. So much like we've done for reference to the hearts and stuff like that here, and for our coin text up here, we're going to say public text, we'll call this our lives text. And we don't need to make a reference to the image of the player that represents the lives because we're not going to be making any changes to that. That's not going to be changing. That's just staying there in the corner looking cool. So first thing we're going to want to do is straight away at the start of the game, we want to set our current lives should be equal to our starting lives. So current lives equal to starting lives, and then we want to make sure that our text on the screen displays exactly what we want it to. So it will be our lives text dot text. Again, much like we've done for our coin text up here. So our lives text.text and then quotation mark, and we're going to say lives space x and then a space and then a quotation mark and then plus whatever the current value of our lives is, which is our current lives, just like that. So this is going to be a line we use it a couple of times in some different places here to control our lives in the world. So if we just save this here, so what we can do is if we go down now to our respawn loop here, so a respawn, all we're doing in our respawn kind of function down here is to basically start our coroutine to kill our player whenever we die or anything like that. So what we're going to do here now is instead of respawning our player straight away, the first thing we're going to want to do is take whatever our current lives value is. So our current lives, we want to take away 1 life from that. So we want to say minus equals 1. So if we have 3 lives, we now want to have 2 lives, and before we respawn or anything like that. So we'll immediately update what our lives say on the screen. So we'll copy our lives text line that we just created up here and paste that in there. So if we lose a life, we want it to immediately reflect that on the screen rather than wait a second for it to update or anything like that in our respawn loop here. And then what we want to do is check, basically we want to check and see if we have enough lives to respawn. So if our current lives is greater than 0, then we'll put a curly bracket around our start coroutine here, and that way we know if our current lives are greater than 0, we're able to do all this respawn stuff down here, and if not, then what we should do is just do this first line of the respawn, which is deactivating the player. So we'll just copy this and paste it in there like that. So now what's happening is if we run out of lives, our player basically will stop respawning. So if we save this now and drop back into the game, if we zoom in here again once it finishes compiling here, okay, zoom back in so we can see what's going on a bit better, and then go to our level manager. We need to set our starting lives. So commonly we start off with 3 lives in most games in general. We'll hit play now. And so we can walk along like this. For some reason our life, we didn't hook up where our lives text was. So our lives text box here, we need to drag that into position there like that, or else we're not going to get much going on at all. So this time we'll hit play and we should get, there we go, we got lives x3. So if we walk along, we fall down off the edge here, we immediately lose a life, and then our player respawns. Walk off again, immediately lose life, our player respawns back up here. We're on our last life, we die, and that's it. There's nothing else happening. So that's the basics of our life system. So now that we have that in place, first of all, let's create a way for our player to be able to get more lives, and we'll create something to actually look like we're sending a message to the player saying you're out of lives or game over, something like that.